Hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, senior film writer for Now Magazine. It's great to have you here. My guest this week is Jackie Kashian, a comedian and podcaster whose shows include The Dork Forest, which she's been doing for a decade, and The Jackie and Laura Show, a more comedy-centric series with Laurie Kilmartin that you can find on Nerdist. She'll also be appearing in Maria Bamford's new series Lady Dynamite, which premieres on Netflix this Friday, May 20th. Jackie picked Holiday Inn, the 1942 musical with Fred Astaire and Bing Crosby playing a pair of entertainers, a hoofer and a crooner, of course, who spend a calendar year driving back and forth between New York City and a little hotel in Connecticut fighting over Marjorie Reynolds, all while performing a songbook of holiday tunes by Irving Berlin. It's the kind of movie the studios cranked out all the time back in the day, and yes, 3/4 of a century later, it's a very different day now. But we'll get to that. This is Someone Else's Movie.
It's sort of, the list I gave you, they were all, to some extent, guilty pleasures. Mm-hmm. And Holiday Inn is one of those, just because it has Bing Crosby in it, who we can talk a little bit about the separation of the man and the art.
You've been doing that a lot lately.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that this is Holiday Inn is of course only open on holidays, and one of those holidays is Independence Day, the 4th of July in the United States, and the musical number in it is all done in blackface.
Oh no, that's Lincoln's birthday.
Oh, is it Lincoln's birthday? Oh, that's right. It's before President's Day.
Again. It's Abraham. That's right. The song is Abraham.
Yeah, and
terrifying.
It's sure, and so those are the two reasons why it's a bit of a guilty pleasure to me, and so I thought it would have more there could be more dialogue.
Yeah,
that's why I picked it, and I've always enjoyed it. Quite honestly, It's a great movie.
I hadn't seen it in about, I would think, whenever that DVD came out, because I checked it out for the color version as well.
39.
So
no, I'm kidding. You haven't seen us on 39.
I would guess it's probably about 10 years old at least, that disc that you're holding.
Oh, this disc?
So I had seen it before, but that was the last time I watched it, and then I watched it again the other day, and I'm kind of amazed at what the movie is versus what people remember, because even I had forgotten that, the basic story is about two guys competing for women, not even just one, but repeatedly and over again.
Right, their entire lives they seem to be falling in love with the same girl.
Yeah, it's this partnership of a hoofer and a crooner, and Astaire is the dancer and Bing Crosby is the singer, and Crosby seems to legitimately pursue love relationships with women. He falls for them and eventually kind of proposes to them, kind of, because he's terrible at it. Right,
he seems to have commitment issues. And on the other hand, Fred Astaire doesn't have any commitment issues because he just wants to win whatever the he's just competitive.
Yeah, he only exists to steal the girl, and it's a Bugs and Daffy relationship. It's kind of remarkable, and how incredibly mean-spirited that is.
Very much so.
But it doesn't play because it's that weird.
And Fred Astaire is enormously likable. Mm-hmm. So he's saying and doing terrible things, and you're like, oh, but he's so likable.
Yeah.
But it has that feel that sort of the Lucy and Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Like every year I watch those Christmas specials, and every year I'll respond to them differently. Some years I'm just furious with Peppermint Patty at Thanksgiving. I'm just like, who would invite themselves over to Thanksgiving? That's insanity. Yeah. And Marcy tells her that, and then Peppermint Patty doesn't ever apologize. She accepts Charlie Brown's apology. And so one year I'll be furious at Peppermint Patty. The next year I'll think it's for some reason equally hilarious.
Right.
And I'll laugh and laugh at poor Charlie Brown, the doof. And this thing is exactly the same, where you're like, sometimes I'll watch it, and I'll watch it every year at Christmas.
Okay.
Even though it's every holiday.
Yeah.
I'll only watch, I usually start it with Holiday Inn, my Christmas movies. Mm-hmm. I usually start it with Holiday Inn.
An organized
stack. And then I end it with Groundhog Day.
Okay.
And then somewhere also near the end is Die Hard. The new Christmas classic.
Sure.
And
with us, it's the Muppet Christmas Carol.
The Muppet Christmas Carol. That's an early one too.
It's wonderful.
I like to watch all the Christmas carols in a row.
Oh wow.
The Mr. Magoo Christmas Carol.
Okay.
The Muppet Christmas Carol. the Astaire, what's his face, Christmas
Astaire
Carol?
Sim, yeah.
Yeah, and
George C. Scott.
I think I'm getting them mixed up. I think I like the George C. Scott.
Yeah.
Which one? 52.
That's Sim.
That's Sim. Okay,
Sim.
so it is the
George
Astaire.
C. Scott was the musical.
Okay.
Scrooge.
Oh.
Which we don't.
And my husband loves Scrooged with Bill Murray, and I do not.
Okay.
But I might as well watch That Girl. You remember when Marlo Thomas did a version of Scrooge on television?
I know of it. I don't know that I've actually seen it.
Well, you are missing so little.
I've seen it in lists.
It's
Scrooge is the sort of it's a weird case because I can totally understand why you wouldn't like it. It was the year that Die Hard was released. It is this hyper steroidal version of this story, and it's manic and insane, and has Bob Goldthwait doing an Elmer Fudd voice. And when you're a 20-year-old boy, as I was, it was exactly what I needed. But it looks like a Coke nightmare now.
It's right. It is a Coke nightmare. I don't understand that and Elf. I mean, I see what's being. I get why people love it. I wish, but I tend to err on the side of older movies.
So you're more classical.
I like classical. I like them to be sweeter. The Bishop's Wife is one of my favorite, and other. I like the older ones, the Bells of St. Mary's, and So
the stuff that you presumably watched when you were a kid growing up.
Yes, my stepmother were beloved. It's a Wonderful Life.
Right. Which again is a dark, mean movie that nobody remembers the first 2 hours of that film.
Oh my God! The fact that guy, every time Andy watches it, my husband, he's just like, "Leave town. You can't fix everything. Get out." Yeah. And he never leaves.
There's an alternate reading of the film that basically says that it's about the canonization of George Bailey, that he is going to be a saint, but they couldn't quite articulate it because of how weird the religious aspects of it are. Yeah. Because he's contemplating suicide, and you can't, that's not a proper Christian thing to do in 1941. But to have the two little angels talking at the beginning, I think actually God is one of the voices at the very beginning. Go on, Clarence, help this idiot.
It's two angels. It's Clarence, the big angel, and then God.
Yeah, and so you have at the end what we are seeing is a saintly, he's performing miracles. He is saving the town. He's doing all these things, and then the other miracle is the weird Catholic thing of everybody coming back and helping him, like the reverse collection plate thing. And to throw that at an audience that, no wonder it didn't do very well at the time. People just didn't know how to process it.
Right. Well, if you look at it from any sort of perspective, instead of the perspective of having watched it for 13 years in a row because it was free to show on television.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at least 3 times a season. It's like any movie. When you're a toddler, how kids are now, where they'll watch, since the invention of DVDs and VHS, you watch the movie over and over and over again. Sure. And
it's like having a story read to you at bedtime. You want the same story.
Exactly. You know how it ends. And so things are just more soothing. I think the first time I saw Pulp Fiction, I was like, the hell is going on? And the 13th time, I was like, this is amazing. But if I were to look at it from any sort of a distance, that first time was a real reaction of course. What a mess. The hell are you doing, Tarantino?
Yeah. How are you spiraling in all these directions and juggling all these characters? And I can I can see how something like Holiday Inn would work as comfit food. Yes. Just in its structure, it tells you exactly what kind of movie it's going to be. That calendar device is established right away. Here are songs for it's Irving Berlin. Here are songs about the holidays by Irving Berlin.
There we go. And some are stirring, and some are very sweet.
And then we also have this
ridiculous,
incredible, the determination to pull. I'm speechless. I forget every time that there is a 4-minute dance number where Fred Astaire is throwing firecrackers at his own feet. Which, if you describe that again, it's like, oh yeah, I saw that in a cartoon. There's no way that was a human being doing that.
Yeah, which is, that's a crazy dance scene. The dance scene that always makes me uncomfortable, because you were speaking about how mean this movie is the Valentine's Day one.
Sure.
Where you're like, first of all, don't actually jump through the crepe paper. Now they have to find more crepe paper. And do you ever get the impression that I might watch movies with a sense of pragmatic? Who's cleaning that up?
Yeah, from a production designer's point of view.
Hey, Grandma, Grandmacation, they got people. Don't worry about it. And
Well, it's the argument, people don't like to see animals in danger because they don't know the animals are acting. Because we, on some level, we don't believe the animals can perceive that they're acting. But it's like, there is a craft services table right over there. Everything's fine.
Right. Maria Bamford went and saw War Horse with her parents.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, oh, I like Steven Spielberg. I like E.T. And so she goes to see War Horse, and she said, as far as I could tell, it was a 13-hour documentary about a horse struggling through barbed wire. And
Not wrong.
I was like, I don't think that's what that movie's about. She said, I couldn't take the horses even in fake peril. Yeah. Fake peril was too... I mean, there's not a kid in the world a parent in the world that would make their kid watch Old Yeller or Sounder.
Yeah.
Right at this time.
These are important ways to learn about maturity. No, it's emotional sadism. That's what it is. It's being tortured.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's what it is, because I remember watching Old Yeller and learning kind of about grief.
Yeah.
And I thought it was powerful and good, but it might just be emotional torture. I mean, you're going to learn about grief. People are going to die. People are going to tell you to walk it off. Get another dog.
Yeah.
And,
sure.
But yeah, it isn't... Nobody's making their kid watch those movies.
Yeah.
But that scene, those two big dance scenes in it, the firecracker one and the Valentine's Day one. I often like singing better than dancing, and I think it's because of Bing Crosby. His character is the only likable one in the movie, except for, of course, the florist.
Sure.
Our main lady.
Yes.
And everybody else seems to be incredibly out of their mind.
Yeah. Marjorie Reynolds, I can't remember
Marjorie Reynolds'
name.
Well, it doesn't matter because that was her only lead. That was her only lead role.
Right. And everyone just was criticizing her because she wasn't Ginger Rogers.
Right.
Which is such a weird
thing to say.
Yeah.
And she had been in a lot of B movies, prior to this. And after this, she was all supporting. Mm-hmm. This was her big lead role.
And she's good.
She did great.
Yeah.
She was incredibly likable and singing and dancing and very pretty and doing all the things that you wanted out of an actress in this film. She fulfilled all of those.
Yeah.
And then the other one, the Banana Head, what was the name of the other woman?
Oh, the woman who...
was Virginia Dale.
Yes.
Virginia Dale, who... was great and looked like, to some extent, like she was having the time of her life.
Yeah.
I love a movie. I'm going to say this and then I'll probably backpedal, because I love a movie or a TV show where you can tell that the actors are having a really good time. But I don't want them to have more fun than me. Right?
Right.
Like,
sorry, no.
The reboot of Ocean's 11.
Okay.
Is a movie where they're having more fun than I am. Mamma Mia, on the other hand, is a terrible movie.
Okay.
That no one's having a good time, except for everyone knows it's a train wreck, so everyone's having a good time. I'm having a great time watching them not be able to sing, and Meryl Streep having to walk up 118 stairs at a Greek island. And I'm like, isn't she 60?
She's a vital 60.
Very much so.
Yeah, okay, I see what you mean. I mean, I love the Ocean's movies because they're so weirdly playful.
They're having a great time.
And Soderbergh...
And if you can let go...
Yeah, invites us in that way with the style.
You feel invited in. See, I feel like I'm just watching it from afar.
Right.
And in this case, I think Virginia Dale is having the most fun of all of these guys. I think the Bing and Fred are kind of just doing another movie.
Yeah.
Marjorie is earnestly, she's like, I'm going to be acting naturally and it's going to be great. But Virginia Dale, I think, has played that part so many times that she just wants to, she's like, oh yeah, I'm an idiot. I'm going to play this idiot woman.
Yeah.
And could have the time of my life.
She's having a blast. And she's also has the least amount of physical work to do. She has the big dance number at the beginning, and she's mostly standing still in it, being coordinated.
Right, because Fred Astaire is dancing circles around everyone.
And Crosby is trying, but not really trying. Yeah,
it's almost like he's not even picking his feet up.
I see what you mean about his lack of effort, but it works for the character too, because he's defined instantly as the reason he wants to open Holiday Inn is because he only has to work 13 days a year, and it's this perfect entertainer's vision of what a great life is, because of course. It's impossible.
Right. You want to spend 350 days a year writing songs
Yeah.
and thinking and writing and thinking and thinking and writing.
Which pays off in the arrangements and the music, I suppose. You can almost make a point of arguing that that's what's going on in the film, but I don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't. It's sure. Let's make it the perspective of a novelist.
Yeah.
You know, he really wants to be a novelist, and then once every 3 years produce a novel. But the whole him finding out how hard farming was very funny. Where you're like, what'd you think it was going to be, weirdo?
Yeah.
And then canning,
That's right,
the canning thing, where he brings and they blow up. I don't much like physical comedy always, but every time I laugh at that because it's absurd.
And that's something Crosby could do too. He could play to the audience with a joke like that, and his timing. There's that moment. He says, "No, wait, let's make sure the other one goes off."
Yeah.
And it's not a joke to Astaire. It's a wink to us that we know like the rule of three.
Yes, right, exactly. And he was never as broad as Bob Hope.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's true. He's more of the straight man in those.
He was the straight man in that one. He was, again, he's the same character, but those road movies were just much, much bigger. You know, they were a lot. And so he's a straight man to Bob Hope's crazy accordion playing monkey. And and so in Fred Astaire is just sort of slightly evil. And yeah. We could talk. I mean, I do love Bing Crosby just because he was a staple of my childhood. All of those road movies, and then this movie, and then the remake of Philadelphia Story as a musical. It's called High Society, with Frank Sinatra and Grace Kelly. And the difference, of course, between Philadelphia Story and High Society is that Katharine Hepburn jumps in the pool.
Yeah.
For me, that's like the defining one, because I only saw High Society as a kid, and my stepmom consistently, because I loved it so much whenever it would come on, and it was, you know, we didn't have a VCR until I was in high school, and I didn't have any tapes. I mean, I don't know what we were using it for. I think we rented videos.
Sure, everybody did.
Yeah, and but I remember watching High Society and Nancy Kashian trying to explain to me that Philadelphia Story was better, and she's like, "No, this is fun. It's good, you know." But I like Frank Sinatra. I mean, I like all these people, but you really have to see Philadelphia Story. But it never came on,
right?
And for some reason, the video store in South Milwaukee, Wisconsin, did not have the Philadelphia Story. And when I finally saw it, my mind was blown.
And you're probably old enough to appreciate it too.
Yeah, I was in my 20s, and I had seen it was during college, I think, so I was maybe 18 or 19. But I saw the Philadelphia Story, and then I saw Holiday, which is with Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, and I was like, "Oh, this is an entirely different level of movie," because I like this kind of eye candy kind of stuff, Holiday Inn and High Society, but when you look at a movie that is sold as a romantic comedy or sold as just more like it isn't a musical, right? It's Cary Grant being a goof, or Clark Gable bringing up Baby is one of the dumbest movies in the world, but I love it.
Sure. The one I bring up is His Girl Friday.
Yeah.
Which is, again, like it's a gender-swapped remake of The Front Page of all things. It should not work because they don't really change very much. They just cast a woman and change the character's name. Mm-hmm. And it's so great. Mm-hmm. It's so smart and sharp, and it's the example that I constantly put forward when people are asking about, why'd they have to change things? It's because it makes it more interesting. Yeah. Sometimes it's more interesting to do something established in a different way. Right. And it's proof that in casting, you don't have to cast a black person in quotes. Mm-hmm. You can cast a person, because everybody's a person. Sure. And so what came first? Was it The Front Page came before? The play was written. The Front Page. It was a film. And there we go. Yeah, and then His Girl Friday was made. I think it's the second film adaptation.
Is it? Because I get them mixed up. Because remember the Jack Lemmon, Walter Matthau one?
Right. That was the same play, but subsequent, like way later.
In the early 70s, late 60s, yeah. Which I loved, because I had an unreasonable crush on Walter Matthau.
Okay.
I don't know what it was about me being 9 years old and loving weird old craggy dudes.
The smoldering sexuality of Walter Matthau.
I liked Walter Matthau. I also enjoyed Steve Landesberg from Barney Miller a great deal.
So it's the sardonic thing.
It is.
It's the world-weary cynicism.
It is. And
He's seen it all.
It's very noir. And so, I don't know. But, yeah, and then...
So then Crosby and Astaire
right.
are these incredibly polished...
Yeah, they have been in the rock tumbler of Hollywood. They have been shined up real nice.
Yeah.
But Bing Crosby has always been that guy. A little snarky, a little quippy, and...
Too fast for the room.
Yeah. A little smarter than the room. And then Fred Astaire, just so gifted. Just anytime I get to watch Fred Astaire dance, it's a treat. Though I don't enjoy any of the ballet sequences. But it's less him... What's his face? Gene Kelly.
Yeah.
Does more ballet than... I want...
Yeah, Astaire did it in the Bandwagon, right? In the Girl Hunt.
I thought it was...
There's a big closing number in that one.
Okay. Yeah, there was a very long dance sequence in one of the Fred Astaire movies that was not the Bandwagon that I can't remember offhand. But whatever it is... But
there was that Vogue at MGM where they were all doing them.
Let's get gauzy and pretend it's a dream sequence, and you're like, well, stop.
Yeah.
Because nobody... Fast forward. Yeah. But I love the acrobatics of it. Mm-hmm. And the sheer physicality of the dancing. It makes me happy. And the Ginger Rogers Fred Astaire movies are amazing as well, just because she's doing everything backwards, and
in heels,
and in heels, as the bumper sticker says.
Yeah, it's true. They really the female roles in these dance showcases are almost always taken for granted, but. You know, when you think about the complications, just watching people dance in a sheath dress. Mm-hmm. Guys don't do that. We have pants. We have tuxedos. I mean, they're constrictive, but they're not physically impeding your movement.
Right. And in Gene Kelly's case, they aren't even constrictive. He's always wearing some sort of loose suit.
Acrobat suits.
Yeah, he's always wearing, chinos and a
stripy top.
And a stripy top. Yeah, some sort of bowling shirt. And you're like, what's going on, Gene?
It's the Kirk Douglas look before Kirk Douglas. This is how I move.
Right.
That sense of freedom. But yeah, Holiday Inn, I know that the gowns were designed by Edith Head, so obviously there was some consulting on how to make the women move and dance and flow. And
if you look at Marjorie Reynolds' dresses, it's pre-spandex, right? Mm-hmm. It's even pre-plastic.
Yeah, there's that glittery thing she wears where the midriff is almost bare with sparkles.
Yeah.
It's a gown, but there's support. You can see the support because she's got panels that are
it's almost like a rubber
pieces up.
Yeah, it's like it's got enough give and flow so that it can just play.
Yeah.
And I think New Year's Eve is New Year's Eve the first one they do together? Marjorie, I think that's the first holiday,
shows
right?
Up,
drunk.
It's the weirdness of someone taking a cab out to wherever this magical suburb is.
Oh, right, outside of...
And getting there just after after midnight on New Year's Eve, and it's like, what? When did you leave? Never mind. I'm enjoying this too much. But yeah, because he shows up just after, the agent shows up just after the big number.
I forgot that he took a cab from New York City to what was clearly I don't know.
Upstate.
Yeah, somewhere upstate New York. That's insanity.
Yeah, it's one of those things where time has no meaning. People get there instantaneously.
Right.
Or just behind someone else. Or there's that whole thing about, I didn't know the way to Connecticut.
Yes.
So
and they use that device at least twice during this damn thing, where they're out in Hollywood. And, but New Year's Eve. Okay, so New Year's Eve, we get to see Mamie and the kids for the first time. Because one of the kids is dressed up as Baby New Year.
That's right.
And
we've already seen them because they escort her. They escort Reynolds to her room.
Oh, right.
And it's awkward and weird.
Right, because the kids are following. It's like, yours name's Mamie? It's like, them wings ain't gonna fly away.
Yeah.
And I every time I watched, even when I was a kid, I was like, who is that woman? Louise Beavers is Mamie. And I remember watching it and just being vaguely uncomfortable as a kid, going, why is she talking like that?
Yeah.
I mean, I was raised in an almost exclusively white factory town in Wisconsin. So I ended up knowing like 3 black people when I was a kid, but to see the portrayal, and I had just, of course, watched Roots.
Okay.
And my parents were, my dad's a button pusher and at a piece of work, so he likes to say racist things just to get the conversation rolling.
Okay.
I remember my brothers and my sister just arguing with him. And when I turned 12, and because he would never argue with you if you were under the age of 12, because that would just make people cry. And that's not fun for my dad. And but I remember when I was 12, he started saying, and he would say things like, dictatorships keep people busy. And
I mean, yes.
Right. He's always 85% right.
I disagree with the idea.
No, you can't. And then... And my brother tried to explain to him about the United Fruit Company and the union. And so, but when I was 12, he started doing it to me, and I had watched 5 of my siblings argue with my dad for 10 years. And so I would just get up and leave the room.
Yeah.
And so then he started doing it in the car. Because he's like...
You're trapped.
And he would actually say, can't step out at 55, huh? And I was like, you're hilarious, Dad. Keep writing. And I never did say anything. But when I remember seeing Louise Beavers, it was fascinating to me because of how racial it was. Yeah. I didn't think of it as racist, except for the fact that was the only role for her. And it felt super contrived. And now when I look back at it, and now when I watch it, and I watch it every year, I think to myself, I bet she's a classically trained actress. And she could probably play King Lear if she were allowed, but clearly not. And
this is, 3 years after Gone with the Wind, too. So that's the role that was available for women of color. And it may not be racist at first, but it gets racist. That's the thing that really struck me this time around.
Now, where do you think it got racist? Besides every single damn scene.
Yeah, it's not directly racist at her. That's what's interesting. The racism is never directed at Mamie or her kids. They're accepted. They're like, people treat them well. They don't condescend to them.
I mean, the interactions.
Yeah.
She's clearly his employee.
But it's the way the movie sees them. And that's what's uncomfortable. Because you have her framed in that really weird sequence. In the Abraham musical, she has one verse, and she's singing to the kids who are... And the other problem I have, too, which pulls me out of it every time, is that the children are terrible actors. Like, they're not looking at her, they're looking off camera. The boy doesn't know what to do, and the girl is beaming, smiling, because that's all she's been told to do.
Right, and essentially they're like...
They're props.
Yeah, they're props. And there's somebody baby wrangling off camera, going
and that
bigger smile.
Which shatters the suspension of disbelief for me completely instantly. And I know I'm watching actors, and I'm watching Louise Beavers trying her best to keep the kids in the scene. Yeah. So there's a little effort there, but when she's singing in the Abraham number, which has already been prologued with a sequence where Astaire... No, sorry, it's Crosby, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crosby runs into a scene and says, I think we should do this in blackface. And your entire body clenches. Right. They're going, no, you shouldn't do that.
You probably shouldn't.
But everybody goes along with it. And even the scene where he makes up Reynolds and blacks up her face, she's not comfortable with it, which is really weird. Like, the joke of the scene is that I spent all this time on my makeup and my hair, and you're going to make me look bad. Yeah. But it reads now as that woman doesn't want to have blackface put on her. And so... this actor is doing it, but by extension, the movie is insisting. So what's happening?
What is happening? Yeah, it feels like they're holding on to something that isn't, that they know is wrong.
It's already wrong. It's already not.
They already get that it's not. It's not needed for the plot. It's not, and because every time she's in any of the numbers, the fact that his manager and Fred Astaire don't recognize her. Yeah. They don't ever ask who the other woman in the show is. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And this is the problem with overanalyzing a movie.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's fine. I mean, this movie could use some scrutiny. So
you impose the Cinderella plot, which means no one can know who this person is.
Right.
But hundreds of people are watching her perform.
Right, and there's only the two of them. She's the main character in all of the movies. Yeah. So in all of the major numbers. So it doesn't make any sense that blackface is going to save that. So blackface is, it feels like more of a, like, you know, when old people are like, well, that's how it was. Yeah. It feels like that. And you're like, who cares how it was?
It's already...
Try to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the movie, it's how it was. Like, the movie is reaching back to a tradition. Like Showboat. I mean, Showboat was huge.
Yep.
Blackface, Negro spiritual exaggeration, like all the worst cases of the entertainment industry trying to do justice to something. And I say justice in finger quotes, listeners. Trying to do justice to something by just making an absolute ugly mockery of it. Because they just think they're doing it better. Right.
They think for some reason, if there's a camera pointed at it, that they're the professionals or something. And you're like, well, you could have got real people to do these things, and it's not. But what I do like is all the scenes where she is talking. She's clearly his employee, but they're having a conversation. It's a real dialogue between her and Mamie and Bing and her, Louise Beavers and Valerie, what's her face? Not Valerie, Marjorie. So I've always appreciated that because there's interviews with older black actors and actresses from that time where they were like, I just want to act. And it just reminds me of different... Alyssa Milano was once interviewed, and she had a movie come out the same year as Beetlejuice, and it was almost the same movie. And she was topless in it. But it was a ghost movie.
Oh, wait.
Poltergeisty kind of...
Embrace of the Vampire.
Yes.
I have seen it because I had to review it.
And the interviewer was interviewing her about it because all of these new pictures of her, she was on Charmed, and all these new pictures of her without a shirt on were all over the internet.
This was of course, the rise of the internet. Which
rise of the internet.
We can take things and put them on the world.
Exactly. And so they were saying, would you have wanted to do Beetlejuice that year instead of the vampire movie? And she said, she just looked at this woman and went, yeah, I would have. And I would have wanted to do anything but the thing I did, but it turns out I'm an actor. And that was the opportunity, that was the job I was offered. Right. And I'm going to take the job I'm offered because that's what I do for a living. And that was, when you see interviews of the woman who was in Gone with the Wind. And
Daniel.
Yeah. She was like, I would get guff from other people of color, of other black people, just saying, what are you doing? You're perpetuating these stereotypes. And she's like, well, I'm acting. You've poured a script into me, and I'm saying the things that I'm told to say. Yeah. And it's a crime of writing rather than a crime of any of the actors.
Yeah, it's really weird to see, to realize that. It's really weird to see something like that 60 or 70 years later and realize that there was an entire studio system built that didn't see anything wrong with it and just thought, oh no, this is the easiest way to do this. Let's just do this.
Right.
Because it's always about getting the film made, getting it released, getting a profit margin. Like, just make it a thing. Just do it.
Just make sure that it's made. And then if you can shoehorn in a couple... And the real problem is that they're still doing it. Yeah. Whenever... It turns out I go out for acting parts with either Asian and black women or all black men.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm usually playing like a guard or a DMV person. Okay. It's these supported roles that they're like, well, there has to be some people of color or a woman who isn't crazy skinny. And so, like, I am a character actor. Sure. And they're like, well, we should probably get someone who looks a little normal or like regular people. Yeah. And the fact that casting is the same. You remember in Miracle on 34th Street, where the nanny of her daughter is black.
Yeah.
And she's not playing at anything. She doesn't have any weird accent. She's just a woman going, yeah, she's over at the neighbors.
Yeah. And no inflections.
No inflections, no weird. No jiving, there's not a lot of weird... stereotypical stuff, but they were like, oh, we could probably cast a black actress in this role. And I knew a casting guy one time, or he used to be a casting guy, and he said he quit the business. And he said, because a Mexican actor came in to fulfill one of these side roles. And he stood there with the sides and was getting ready to do his to do the thing on tape. And he turned to the casting director and said, "Did you want the accent?" Yeah. And the casting director was like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry. I need the weird accent of the cholo, the stereotypical Mexican guy." And he said a week later he quit. He's like, it was the final straw of, I don't see it. He's like, I'm trying to get some diversity. I'm trying to get just people who can. So we were talking about the front page and His Girl Friday. Mm-hmm. And so you can cast anybody to play any of these roles, and it plays fine for the most part. Yeah. You know, like if you look at Ghostbusters, that's a job.
The new one or the...
Yeah, the new ones, which they're just... I assume it's going to be something comparable script-wise.
Yeah, I assume.
And it's just going to be a bunch of just sort of misfits, society's misfits, off, fighting ghosts. Yeah. And
people forget the original Ghostbusters is not about, the Clooneys of the world battling the paranormal. It's about a bunch of nerdy academic scientists who yell at each other and then yell at ghosts.
Yeah, one nerdy academic scientist, Harold Ramis, and the other two were kind of like, I'll do whatever you want. And the guy who needed a job. Yeah,
and that's true. I got to credit Aykroyd for the insane mythology. Like, he's the one who delivers all that stuff. That's right.
He was the conspiracy guy.
He's so committed to it.
Bill Murray was the think system slacker guy, right? Yeah. He was the slacker, but he had... He was doing some sort of studies as a professor where he would meet girls.
Yes, exactly.
That was his thing.
And if you watch Ghostbusters now, Bill Murray comes off as such a creepy pickup artist. Yeah, he is actively hitting on
everyone.
But Weaver, when his scenes with Sigourney Weaver, it's lucky that she's taller than he is, because you believe that she could deck him. Yeah, and that she's sort of like her role is, well, you're going to get hit on and then soften. Yeah. That's her role, and she still manages to invest it with life. But
yeah, it's Chad Daniels does an amazing joke. He's a great comic out of Minneapolis. I think he's playing Canada right now. Ooh. And but he does this great joke about how he went out to lunch with his grandmother, and his grandmother said to the waiter, I think, that he was going to try to Jew her down. And not to the waiter, he said it to Chad because Chad yelled at her. And nobody heard her say the horrible thing, right, but everyone heard him yelling at the old lady, and so he got a lot of hairy eyeballs. And he said, my grandmother's a racist, and people are constantly trying to explain to me, well, that's how she was raised, and I constantly trying to explain to them, yeah, but she's raised. She's an adult now. Wrap it up. Yeah. And
that's great, actually. Of course, you're responsible for your own decisions past a certain point.
Right. I don't care if you come from a different time. You're not in that time, is his entire point of that joke. And
I wonder if you could go into a restaurant and steal the tip jar and just say, that's how I was raised, and see how that plays. And just apply it to anything else.
Anything else. Just, it's completely cuckoo bird. And so whenever I see those old sexist guys, it's like the Holiday Inn. Mm-hmm. It's the old racism, the old sexism. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because it's more of a testimonial, a reminder of how things used to be and how they don't have to be now. Okay. And they cut it on AMC sometimes, American Movie Classics.
I was really surprised to find that the Abraham number just goes away.
Yeah, the entire holiday goes away. Yeah. President's Day, gone. Abraham Lincoln. But
well, I mean, Valentine's Day is like right around the corner, I guess. You can rush right in. And it doesn't add anything plot-wise, but it's just shocking to think that you can dispense with an entire chunk of movie and yet keep
the movie,
all the other stuff, which is still, it's not exactly progressive in the whole two guys chasing the girl thing. And
it's not a complicated movie, so you could probably chop it up to, you could leave 2 holidays in and call it a day. But I understand when they cut things for time, but when they cut things for censorship, I was like, please do not revisionist history my history, you know? It's like when you see E.T. and he's airbrushed out the guns. Right. There's a great science fiction writer named Cage Baker. Cage with a K.
Don't know.
Baker is Baker. And she talks about a futurist, it's time travel and immortality. And the history's perfect, quite honestly. The amount of research she did was fantastic. And the books themselves are very funny and smart. But in the future, she died probably 5 years ago. And the predictions of the future are coming true all around me, and it's creepy as all hell. Because, I mean, she wrote the first one probably in the 90s, and she was talking about adult sippy cups. You know, in the 2050s, everybody has their own sippy cup. And people do. Kinda do. And then she was talking about how everything became illegal. Meat became illegal. Sugar became illegal. Caffeine became illegal. Chocolate became illegal. And the movie started getting edited for violence. Smoking was the first thing they started taking out. They started taking out all the cigarettes from all the movies.
Which just makes people look weird. Like the digital erasing of cigarettes, people are just standing around flipping each other off as far as you can tell.
Right. And it focused my attention to things like that where I don't want you. I don't have to see that. I mean, Midnight Run is a great movie.
Sure.
But it is full of cursing and full of smoking and full of bad life choices.
Sure, yeah.
Full of stealing. There's all kinds of terrible things going on. But I need those things to stay because they're like, it'd be like trying to rewrite Aeschylus, you know? And I'm not comparing Midnight Run to Aeschylus. Yes, I am.
Someone will, yes.
And but I think that there's value in keeping the blackface. Don't show the movie. Don't show the movie at all if you're going to cut out the President's Day thing. Because it belittles what I think the entire black community was going through. It cuts out the only decent scene where she gets to sing. Mm-hmm. And it's troubling, obviously, to me.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. I think I'm absolutely in favor of preservation and contextualization rather than elimination.
Yeah.
And if you need to open it with Alec Baldwin saying, "Hello, viewers. In 1942, America was hella racist, and this was okay. People were all right with this. Enjoy the movie." At least provide the context.
Yeah, you could do a disclaimer if you need to.
You maybe should.
And if you have to cut the movie because you're showing it, have you ever tried to watch Midnight Run on regular cable?
No, God, no.
Oh my God! Every time they say the F word, they've turned it into fudge or factory or I'm calling somebody a fracking frack, and you're like, no, please don't.
Oh, it was. It's Edgar Wright. It's always Edgar Wright. Whenever I come up with an anecdote, Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg have a little thing on the Shaun of the Dead DVD where they discuss what the looping was and how much fun they had with it and how ridiculous they got. And that, if you're gonna do it, play with it.
Yeah.
But no, don't change it just because it's Midnight Run. People are doing terrible things to each other on television. They do that anyway.
Right. Show it on HBO.
Yeah.
Or later at night when now you can show almost anything.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's weird that Holiday Inn would be more contentious than an R-rated chase picture in which basically, you're having nothing but fun the whole time.
Right. And it's just murdery and cursey. And so
yeah, I mean I try to see this stuff when it comes up. I see that the film is now an archive. The film is an artifact. It's a documentary of how cinema used to work.
Yeah.
And what passed for entertainment and what people were okay with.
Yeah.
And I would really like to believe that in 1942 people were squirming through the blackface. I'm pretty sure they weren't.
Right.
It was just the thing.
I mean, there might have been just some sighing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just... I remember watching Ghostbusters when it came out in the 80s. 80s, right?
Yeah, 84.
And in 84, I was like 19... And watching it and laughing, but also like, the hell is he talking to her like that? But I didn't worry about it. I was just like, yeah, guys are out of their minds. And now when you see that sort of activity, when men talk to women like that, and more men understand now, because most men are polite. Most men are not catcalling and yellering and saying weird, inappropriate things. And when you hit on somebody, you're usually not hitting on them in that overt... There's one guy. I went overseas to perform for the troops. Mm-hmm. And there was always... 98% of the people that I would meet were weirdly... Because I don't know anything about the armed forces. But they seemed genuinely to have joined the Army or the Navy or the Air Force or whatever to to be of service. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, I wonder if I can be of some help. And there'd be two people out of 10 or whatever, 2 people out of 100 who were like, well, you're not safe unless you're with me. You want to feel my muscle? Yeah. And the other 98 people are like, no, Jim's all right. You don't want to be alone with him, but yeah, he's just a jackass. Right. And so they know, and there's just, so it isn't everybody, but we're more aware of it now. You know, you're not, because of the filming and we get to watch the nightmare of bad behavior more often now. Then we're more, so when it's fictionalized, you're like, oh, that's actually terrible behavior. We shouldn't fictionalize that. And you're like, unless they're the bad guy. And Bill Murray's the good guy in the Ghostbusters movie. So.
Yeah, it stands out. It reads wrong.
Right. And he's not a bad guy. He's just a guy with terrible social skills who doesn't know how to hit on women. Yeah. And some woman took, there are real men like that. And there are real women who have felt pity on that guy and gone like, it's hard to go out in public with you, but I do love you. And I mean, I remember being as a kid, my mom would be like, I really like Amy or whoever, but her husband is a piece of work. And I was like, that's what people say about Dad. No, I didn't say that, but but I'm sure people said that about my dad, because my dad can be hard. And my stepmom was such a nice woman that they were like, why do you hang out with that guy with the mouth? And and she was like, because he's cute. I've always liked him. And
you can't explain attraction.
Right.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing. It's the, he says, picking up the Holiday Inn box set, it is the driver of comedy in the Holiday Inn, certainly.
For sure.
In as much as the thing functions as the slowest, calmest romantic farce I've ever seen. But it's following that mechanism where they are both constantly hitting on her, but in the most weirdly graceful and polite and dignified way. Like,
it is benign.
Of all of the film's sins retroactively, the chivalry is really interesting to see.
Right. It is.
People are helping each other, and constantly she's lifted out of the water and by an idiot, but still he means well.
Right.
There's no
malice towards the women in this thing.
Right.
It is the comedy is at the expense of each other.
Yeah.
It is a celebration of essentially just different kind of life choices. Bing Crosby wants to be lazy, but he wants to sing and write, and he thinks it's going to be fine. Yeah. And Fred Astaire just wants to work and have a pretty girlfriend. That's his whole thing.
Yeah, preferably Crosby's.
Crosby's.
Because he seems to have a really limited pool. That's the thing that fascinates me, and that's why I keep thinking of the Bugs and Daffy dynamic. Yeah. Because Daffy really only ever wants whatever Bugs has.
Right. And that is the greatest analogy, because it's true.
Yeah, but it's so calm. That's the difference. And like in a cartoon, you have 7 minutes. It's got to be manic. Time. It's got to be really. And Daffy only functions at a high volume. You can't there's no calm Daffy Duck cartoon, which would be amazing. It would be Bill Murray. It would be just like Daffy Duck sitting at home with a book, not doing anything, getting a phone call. No, thank you, and moving on. I really want to find out what happens to the submarine. But this is so easy and relaxed between the two of them that in any reasonable world they would hate each other by now, but they're still having so much fun.
They would have stopped talking a generation earlier. But they are still friends, and and they're in the movie together. I mean, that's the whole driving force of the movie, is that they have to still be friends for some as yet undefined reasons.
Yes, perverse storytelling purposes.
For those. Yeah. But I do.
Well, it's as you say. I mean, we get to experience them taking pleasure in each other's company. Yeah. And that's why it makes it okay.
It's more of a bromance than anything else, because they like each other more than they like any of the women they're ever with. Because they keep coming back to each other. Mm-hmm. And at the end, when they each get a lady of their very own, then they can. You suspect that then they can put it to bed. Then they can just hang out, and their wives can be friends, and it doesn't have to be this thing, but will they miss it? They might. I think Fred Astaire will.
Yeah.
Bing Crosby won't. He's like, just stay with crazy. Yeah. You get crazy, I get the girl next door, and
There's some really weird key parties in their future.
Oh my God.
20 years from now, it's the ice storm. They're all just sitting around, just staring. Well, I guess it's that kind of time.
And Marjorie's like, I'm not playing your weird bowl of keys party. Find somebody else. Get the manager guy.
Yeah, we'll turn it into a song. We'll make a bit out of it. Come on. There is a whole other. I'm sure Karina Longworth will do a thing on the bizarre pandering of Irving Berlin. And even now, like looking at White Christmas, I did it again. Even now, looking at Holiday Inn, which ends with this insane patriotic dance number because they're gone to war.
Yeah.
Like, this is the beginning of World War II for America.
Right.
And that's
the 4th of July.
Yeah, so that's how it has to end, with this huge Independence Day send-off, and then they have the reprise of White Christmas. But the big final, like, as far as the musical structure is concerned, the climax is that Independence Day number. With Fred Astaire frantically throwing fireworks at his own feet.
Right. Which is the very end of it is the White Christmas.
Yeah, it's the reprise of White Christmas.
Right, and the holiday thing and the love story.
Right.
So, but the last real number is I think what you're talking about.
The big high point of the thing.
That's true, because freedom.
Yeah, and there's film, and there's superimposition, and there's that montage.
And he's wearing a top hat with a Uncle Sam hat, and they've lost their minds. But they're like, we got to protect this. We got to do, and buy war bonds.
Marching out to exactly.
Yeah, it's very much that. That is the last big number before they all go off to Hollywood, right?
Yeah, then it's basically epilogue.
Yep. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, and maybe it's just having watched Trump and Christie like just yesterday. It's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, this is only over the top if you're not, like, 60 years ago this must have seemed exactly what or 70 years ago, during the war, this must have seemed like exactly what people needed to see. The calculation of it, the pandering of it.
Sure.
Now it feels like they're going to do that at the Republican convention. They're going to do this exact number because why not?
They should do that number because it'll get a lot. You see that picture of some crazy blonde lady with the perfect makeup and smile on her face, holding her baby up.
That rictus on her face.
Yeah, she's very much. And it, I thought it looked exactly like that crowd that Indiana Jones was parsing through to get. The Grail Diary, and Hitler ends up signing it. Right. And, there's trouble. Yeah. The world will continue to spin, but things may change. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, if they do stage the Independence Day number, with Trump, he'll actually be firing bullets at the guy dancing as opposed to fireworks. Like, that's the only thing that'll change. Otherwise, the tone's exactly the same.
Right. Well, Trump has both the KKK vote and the mob vote now, so
that takes work.
Right.
That's
there's some overlap, even though, of course, the Klan can't possibly like the Catholic Italians. Yeah. But
they found the common cause.
They got the enemy of your enemy is your friend. So I don't know. It's a crazy time to be. You know what the Chinese say? That's a curse. The Chinese curse is to live in interesting times, and I like the nostalgia of the old movies, but I don't like World War II. I don't wanna see the sands of Iwo Jima. I don't wanna, the bridge over the River Kwai. I don't want to see Apocalypse Now. I'm good. Yeah. It's I don't want to live through that. Yeah.
And we end up being Germany in this formulation, which is the thing that really bugs me. It's like that's where Trump is full on fascism now.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Even the Germans know that we're the fascists in this, and when they start calling it, because they're the only ones that have ever been completely honest about their own sort of mistakes, not to put it lightly.
Yeah.
And there's no. The United States has been very lucky that none of the wars have happened on U.S. soil, except for the Civil War.
Right.
And if there's another war, it's going to be on U.S. soil, and there's going to be trouble. But who knows? My theory is that as soon as we hit 300 million people in the United States, nobody knew how to govern that many people. And nobody thought to ask the Chinese. Right. The Chinese and the Indians, even the Malaysians, the Indonesians, other countries do it. Yeah. I don't understand why we didn't talk to somebody. We could have talked to somebody. I think there's 300 million people in Japan, aren't there? I like population, but I can't remember.
Small island.
It's densely populated.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. Well, Americans never listen to anybody, which is why. But, yeah. Yeah, so the last question is also always the same, which is if there is anything in Holiday Inn in the film that has sort of found its way into your work. Do you ever find yourself calling back to it or using it or stealing from it?
Oh, interesting.
Have you ever, been in a scene somewhere and just thought, what would Bing do?
Never. Okay. I have, for the love of God, I have never thought to myself, who would Bing punch?
Yeah.
I have not.
It's a good mantra.
It's usually someone smaller than him, if I remember correctly from the gossip.
That's where it gets problematic.
But sometimes I think about when I think about Holiday Inn, I usually relate, quite honestly, mostly to the Mamie character, and I mostly relate to the fact that she had advice to give. It was unsolicited, but she gave it anyway. So if I were to relate to anything in that movie, I'm not a very good singer, more of a team singer. I certainly don't know how to dance. So it would have to be, but I make a hell of a turkey. Okay. And unsolicited advice used to be a problem. So, I would have to say that I relate mostly to Mamie in this particular iteration of film.
Okay. I did not see that coming.
No?
No. It's a really interesting angle, though, because, if you're coming at it from the point of view of a character player, that's the character role. It's the role with character. It's either her or the other florist.
Sometimes when I look at movies, I'm just like, oh, I could have played that. They would have cast me as that. That would have been a thing. It would have been that or the florist. Or probably... No, would not have been the security guard, not in 41. No. But... so it's... And plus her character, quite honestly, was the only constant. The Marjorie character was a good person. Bing Crosby was okay. He was also contriving and lying a little bit and not really knowing what he wanted to do with his life and stuff like that. Fred Astaire's a mess. Yeah. And the manager is a damn tool bag is what he is. And so... as is the other blonde, who was named...
Virginia Dale?
Yeah, Virginia Dale. Virginia Dale, who is, I think, sincere in her desire to marry a fabulously wealthy person. Yeah. And so the only real constant character is Mamie. And Mamie, she's just coming to work every day. And she likes some of these people, because if you hang out with somebody long enough... Even if they're a different social strata than you are in 1941, sure, you can become affectionate. You can have a vested interest in their happiness eventually if you're a human. And I think Mamie is almost the most human of the entire cast. Yeah, because she's like, I'm trying to raise these kids. Yeah, that can't act.
She has a life. Yeah, she goes home and starts the acting lessons and sighs.
She's like, why are you looking directly into the camera, kid? Please don't look directly into the camera.
My thanks to Jackie Kashian, who you can see in the new Netflix series Lady Dynamite, premiering this Friday, May 20th, and you can hear her on the Dork Forest and the Jackie and Laurie Show, available wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're in Toronto, she'll be coming back in September for JFL 42. You can find Jackie online at JackieKashian.com or on Twitter at Jackie Kashian, all one word. And you can find Holiday Inn on DVD and Blu-ray from Universal Studios Home Entertainment, and for rental and purchase on iTunes and Google Play. There is a color version out there. Please don't bother with it. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner and elsewhere on the internet at nowtoronto.com. You can also find this podcast on Twitter at Semcast, S-E-M-Cast, or on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. If you want to leave a review on iTunes, that would be very kind of you. This week's call sign is Unenlightened Era. Thanks for listening.